Great, thank you, and welcome to the Assembly Committee on Education. Will the Secretary please call roll?
Assemblywoman Duran?
Here.
Assemblyman Flores?
Present.
Assemblywoman Gorlow?
Here.
Assemblywoman Hanson?
Here.
Assemblywoman Hardy?
Here.
Assemblywoman Krasner?
Here.
Assemblywoman Marzola?
Here.
Assemblyman MacArthur?
Here.
Assemblywoman Miller?
Here.
Assemblywoman Nguyen?
Here.
Assemblywoman Tolles?
Here.
Assemblywoman Torres?
Here.
Chair Bill Bray Axelrod?
Here. So we have all members present, so we do have a quorum. Welcome to all of those who are viewing online or through our YouTube channel, and to those participating by video or phone. Before we begin, I just want to do a few housekeeping announcements. If you have not done so already, please make sure to mute your microphone when you're not speaking to minimize background noise. Committee members, please keep your camera on for the duration of the meeting so we can ensure a quorum is present. We do expect courtesy and respect in this committee. We don't always agree in policy, but we need to be respectful of each other in the legislative process. All meeting materials can be accessed on the committee's webpage on Nellis. And a reminder for those watching online in this virtual world, we do have several screens going at once. So if you see members looking away, they're likely looking at material or exhibits for the committee. We have two bills today. We will be taking them in reverse order. For the bill hearing this afternoon, I've allocated equal time for testimony and support, opposition, and neutral. Each person providing testimony will be allowed a maximum of 2 minutes. Staff will time each speaker to ensure everyone is given an equal opportunity to speak, and speakers are urged to avoid repetition of comments made by previous speakers. We'll limit the overall length of each testimony to about 30 minutes. If you wish to testify and have not done so already, please register online through the link provided on the agenda for the meeting. Upon successful registration, you will receive a telephone number, meeting ID, and instructions for joining the meeting. So we have an accurate record and count. We ask that you do not share that information, but instead encourage others to register online to participate. You may also submit public comment in writing, either in addition to or in lieu of testimony. If you do not want to testify, but you do want to give your opinion on the bill, you may register and it'll show your interest in a particular bill. The chair or members of the committee may request testifiers to submit documentation supporting their testimony. So I am now going to open the hearing on AB 215. This bill revises provisions governing the eligibility requirements for participation for courses for an adult to earn a high school diploma. Assemblywoman Constantine, welcome to the Assembly Education Committee, and please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair Bilber Axelrod, Vice Chair Miller, and all of the members of the Education Committee for allowing me to be here today. For the record, my name is Venetia Constantine, and I have the privilege of representing District 18 down in Clark County. I am here today to present AB 215. I want to say that this bill was not my idea. I received a call from my constituent, Lilani Shive. She saw a problem. She wanted to get it fixed. She reached out to me and we met several times and talked about it. And the result is AB 215. This bill simply adds another option for a small segment of students who complete or attend 4 years of high school but are credit deficient. So instead of me explaining this bill, I would like to turn this over to Ms. Shive, since this was her bill to begin with. She brought it to me to explain the bill. I do want to say that there is one small amendment that was requested of us, which I will talk about after her presentation. So if it's okay with the chairwoman, if we can turn it over to Mrs. Shive.
Great.
Thank you, Chair Bill Bray Axelrod and Vice Chair Miller, as well as the rest of the Education Committee. My name is Leilani Shive, and I'm here to discuss AB 215 with you. I'm an assistant principal at Sunrise Mountain High School, and I'm also an evening site supervisor for adult education. I've been doing that since approximately 2013-14 school year, about 7 years. I brought this concern to Assemblywoman Considine because it's something that's been an issue every year. The problem is that every year we have students that contact us and they ask, what do I need to do to finish my diploma? Of course, we look at the transcript first to see how many credits they need, determine which program is in their best interest. Next, we look at their age and birthday. And every year there are roughly a dozen or so students that contact me where I just want to cringe because they only need a few credits to complete their diploma, but they're 17-year-olds, and in some cases they won't turn 18 until as late as September 30th, based on when they start kindergarten. So the way the law currently reads, the student needs to be 18 to go into the adult diploma program and finish their diploma. At 17, they could only go into the high school equivalency program. And there's nothing wrong with the high set or the GED type program. I myself started with that, but I would not recommend it when they just need a few credits to get an actual diploma. And it becomes this crazy waiting period before they can enroll in the diploma program just because of an arbitrary birthday cutoff date. And AB 215 would remedy that problem. It changes the wording to allow students who are 17 but have attended 4 years of high school without graduating the opportunity to complete their diploma through adult education. Because the reality is we want to get them enrolled and have them finish while they're ready and willing, strike while the iron is hot, not tell them that they need to wait a few months until their 18th birthday. So thank you again, and that's AB 215 in a nutshell, but I'm also here to answer any questions that you may have for me.
Thank you very much for that testimony. Do we have any questions from the committee? I'm not seeing any in the chat. Looking around. Oh, I see Assemblywoman Torres has a question. I see Assemblywoman Toles is lifting her hand, but I don't think she has a question. Okay. Anyone else? Okay, Assemblywoman Torres.
Hey, thank you, Assemblywoman. Thank you, Ms. Shiver, for the presentation. I appreciate it. And I'm just wondering if there's any safeguards in this legislation that'll prevent counselors from essentially like encouraging kids to move on. What I've noticed in teaching is that sometimes we know that a student may not be on track to graduate, and I hear that there might be they might be ill-advised to just transfer over to adult ed. And, as you and I know, the graduation rate is not quite as high. So I just want to see if there's any safeguards in place or if there's been consideration of safeguards in place to ensure that they're not advised to transfer in the middle of their senior year or their junior year.
That's a great question, Assemblywoman Torres. The wording in the bill itself says that they have to have finished, basically. They have to have attended 4 years of high school. So it would be at the end of their senior year. They could not be encouraged to go early. We're not trying to take students from the general high schools. We're just trying to give those the opportunity to finish who have, already attended 4 years of high school and not earned their diploma.
Thank
Does
you.
that answer the question?
You're good, Assemblywoman Torres? Okay, thank you. And thank you for that clarification. I know that we do want our students to stay in high school for the 4 years, but we do want to make sure they're whole, and this is a great option. So thank you for bringing this bill. Assemblywoman Considine, you mentioned that, is there a conceptual amendment? I didn't see one, but I thought that you might have said that.
Yes, Madam Chair. So we received a request from the Education Services Division Alternative Services to change the wording in subsection 2 from completed to attended. So the statement is at least 17 years of age and has completed at least 4 years of high school. The request was to change that to attended, so that attended more reflects what the student what has happened with the student is that they have attended those 4 years. Completed might imply that they actually finished high school, which might have a conflict. So I can have that drafted and sent that over to you today, but that is the only conceptual amendment to this bill.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions from our committee, so I will go ahead and begin testimony in support. Please remember to clearly state and spell your name and limit your testimony to 2 minutes or as close to as possible. Staff from BPS, please add the first caller.
Testify in support on AB 215. Please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 007, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Rasmussen, Rasmussen, and I'm here to testify on behalf of Nevada Attorneys for Criminal Justice. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. NACJ supports this legislation and this bill because we believe that it's an appropriate mechanism to address the issue with inmates. So we're in support. I don't think I saw any proposed amendments, but I've heard what you're discussing, and I don't think that we have any issue with that. So we just wanted to let you know that we all support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rasmussen. It's nice to hear you in the Education Committee. And we do not have that amendment up on Nellis yet, but we will have it as soon as possible. Next caller.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 500, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hello, my name is Eric Gant, G-A-N-T, and I am the Executive Director over Adult Education and Corrections for the Clark County School District. I'd like to thank the Chair and the committee for the time to speak today. I am obviously here to speak in support of AB 215. Ms. Shive covered every bullet point that I would have to say, but we definitely want to strike while the iron is hot for students who have completed 4 years of high school but have not hit the threshold they need. So I think changing this language to allow these students to hop right into their adult diploma instead of being forced to go through the HiSET or GED route would be extremely beneficial for our students in need. So thank you, and thank you to Assemblywoman Constantine for taking the time to help sponsor this bill. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Gant. BPS, next caller.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 411, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, this is Lindsay Anderson, LINDSAY-ANDERSON, on behalf of the Washoe County School District. The Washoe County School District is in support of AB 215. We appreciate the bill sponsor for reaching out to us long before the session even started to float this concept and allow our staff to weigh in. We do allow 17-year-olds to enter our adult ed program right now under the premise that by the time they finish, they'll be 18. We do make it available as the very last option. We want to work hard to ensure that students and their families understand the implications of adult ed versus a traditional high school diploma. And these students that do opt into the adult ed program are considered non-graduates for their cohort and as for the accountability measures for graduates. They do not graduate with their class, so they are considered non-graduates. So we do everything we can to make sure that they can be successful in a traditional high school setting, but having this additional option available for some of these 17-year-olds makes sense to us. So we're in support. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. BPS, are there any other callers in support?
To those who have just joined, to testify in support on AB 215, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. To anyone who has just joined, to testify in support on AB 215, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, at this time, the line is open and working. However, there are no more callers to testify in support on AB 215.
Thank you. Next, we will hear testimony in opposition of AB 215. Is there anyone on the line to testify in opposition?
To testify in opposition on AB 215, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, to testify in opposition on AB 215, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, at this time, the line is open and working. However, there are no more callers to testify in opposition on AB 215.
Thank you. Are there any callers in neutral?
To testify in neutral on AB 215, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, to testify in neutral on AB 215, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, at this time, the line is open and working, but there are no callers to testify in neutral on AB 215.
Thank you. I am going to give you the option if you want to say something in closing, but with no opposition testimony, you might want to just move on.
Well, if I may just take a moment and thank those who called in support, and I want to thank Ms. Shive, and just to reiterate that this is just another option to help a segment of our young adults who may be working during the pandemic, who may find themselves in a situation where the other options don't work, and this one is a better way to work, and they still have that urge to complete their high school diploma. So I appreciate this becoming an option for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. With that, I'll close the hearing on AB 215, and I will open the hearing on AB 169. This bill revises provisions governing higher education. Assemblywoman Constantine, begin when you're ready.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Assemblywoman Venetia Considine. I represent Assembly District 18. Thank you, Chair, Madam Chair Bilberry Axelrod and Vice Chair Miller for allowing me to present two bills today, the second one being AB 169. So this bill, with the proposed amendment, there is an amendment, it's on Nellis, and I will be talking more about the amendment than the original language that was added to the bill. It strengthens laws for students who are recruited by and enroll in private post-secondary education institutions, also known as private for-profit schools. Over the past several years, we've seen multiple for-profit chain schools and colleges close and leave students without the promised education and poorer than they began. At the same time, with the economic downturn, the pandemic is driving higher education online. Recently loosened regulations that have happened in the past few years for for-profit institutions, and enrollment in private post-secondary education and schools and colleges is increasing nationwide, particularly among those 29 years and older, female and part-time students. Many people, including those in our community, believe right now that their jobs are not coming back, and private for-profit institutions advertise a faster way to obtain education and training in a new career, often with promises of job placement upon completion. Private for-profit institutions typically underperform compared to their peer institutions nationwide. Studies consistently have shown that private institutions are less likely to graduate, students are less likely to graduate and more likely to pay higher tuition costs compared to public institutions. They take on more debt, default on student loans, and earn less. They also tend to serve more lower income individuals, people of color, and women. Given these issues, it is important to provide protections for our students. That is the genesis of AB 169. I would like to go over the amendment because this is really the largest portion of the bill. But before I do that, I do want to thank the Commission on Post-Secondary Education and the people that I have spoken with over the past few weeks to really make sure that this bill both protects students, but does also allow students who are looking for training in the post-secondary institutions to be able to obtain that education as well. So the proposed amendment would remove provisions provided in the original bill language and replace them with some additional language, as well as require private post-secondary educational institutions to meet new certain requirements, include certain information on their enrollment agreements, have a website with a prominent link to disclosures and their complaint policy, provide a 3-day cancellation policy for enrollment agreements, and prohibit recruitment in locations where prospective students cannot be reasonably expected to make informed and considered decisions. So if you'd like, I am happy to go through each section of the amendment and explain why some of these have been included. So in section A, where the original change in the language, so it would be section 1, subsection 1A, I am removing the original language that is there, but also adding at the end of subsection A, where it says the institution shall refund a student all of the money the student has paid, just adding absent situations where occupational requirements change, where some schools I've learned during, let's say, a 2-year course, an 18-month course, the expectations from employers have changed. So there are some occupational requirements that have changed. That absent situations where occupational requirements change, substantially fail to furnish includes the canceling or changing of a program without meeting the requirements of the regulations, NAC 394610. And that is more or less not to punish the good actors. It is that we have seen, and there has been a history of bad actors, post-secondary institutions that pop up, that are unlicensed, that are kind of hard to track down. So this is just to, make sure that the regulations can be changed to match any situations if we still continue to see that. Also, there is a change to NRS 394-441, Section 4. Provide each student with a current and complete copy of the agreement to enroll, dated and signed by the student or the student's guardian and offer of the institution, which includes a statement that the parties have reviewed each section and had the opportunity to ask questions. This particular section, if passed as it is, will conflict with the regulations. And I do want to work with the Commission for Post-Secondary Education and change those regulations so that these both align. The reason for this portion of it is I have learned that there are some enrollment agreements, which is essentially the contract that the student signs with the institution, that are in 6-point font, that are 7 or 8 pages long, that are full of legalese, and that it is recognized that a lot of students don't necessarily read that enrollment agreement. So adding language that each provision of the agreement is reviewed with the student, I think not only adds the education to the institution, but puts forward, straightforward with the student to go over exactly what they're agreeing to, and also what what their expectations are and what the institution's expectations are. In addition, to add to the enrollment agreement, a statement that they, so to add to the statute that institutions shall not permit personnel to engage in recruiting activities where protective of students cannot reasonably be expected to make informed and considered enrollment decisions. The expectation for this is that the regulations will put out some of those areas where those areas would be. So let's say right outside of a welfare office or near a homeless shelter. I don't want to put a defined list of those within statute when they could be more defined or explained in the regulations and changed as needed. An institution, however, can engage in recruiting activities at employment opportunity centers under government auspices, provided the institution has permission. So want to make sure that institutions can still go and recruit in places, just in making sure that they're places where there is a less of a chance for someone who can fall for something that they are not necessarily financially or stability-wise able to complete a long program. Also, to provide each applicant with a complete and current catalog and an opportunity to review the catalog prior to signing the enrollment agreement. This is just sort of typical consumer protection language, so that the student can take the catalog home, can review it, has some time to go through all the paperwork without feeling like they need to sign on the bottom line immediately if they are unsure, if this is the career path that they want to go through, that they have some time to consider it and balance it out with everything else that's going on with their lives. Also learned that not every institution necessarily has a website. So I'd like to require that every institution does create and have a website. And on that website, they have the link to a disclosure page and a link to a complaints page, so that any student who does run into any problems understands that there are different levels of complaints. It has to start with the school, the advisor, and go all the way up until, if something isn't resolved, then they can go to the Commission on Post-Secondary Education. And I also putting enrollment agreements in no smaller than 10-point font. I think that they should be readable. And then enrollments agreements, again, as I mentioned before, having a 3-day cancellation policy with clear language explaining how a potential student can cancel within those 3 days. That's sort of the whole bill, the amendments, the reasoning for those amendments. I'm here to answer any questions, and thank you for allowing me to present the bill.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. I know for someone whose eyesight has deteriorated over this pandemic, I definitely appreciate the no smaller than 10 points for the language. I did want to ask, and this might be just my judiciary brain going, but the 3-day cancellation policy, should we spell out that that's 3 business days? Should we keep it as calendar days? Should we possibly, since you're amending it anyways, maybe we should spell that out if you're amendable to that?
Yes.
But thank you, I'm going to say, for doing, I know we've had many conversations about your bills, and clearly you've done the work. So thank you for that. I think we have a question from Vice Chair Miller.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Assemblywoman, for bringing this legislation forward. As you stated, oftentimes these for-profit schools, I don't want to diminish any student or any person who wants to advance in their training or education, but we know that sometimes decisions to attend these schools are based on the promise to get through it quicker than other training programs or colleges, and also just easier to be accepted, and so with lower grade points or lower requirements, and so people feel that this is what I can do at this point. I've seen often, and I'm thinking of one of my lifetime friends who had the experience of being halfway through a program, and one of these huge, well-known national technical schools, they showed up the next day and all the doors were locked. And so I appreciate that your bill brings from giving the student more education, more discussion. I think everyone in higher ed needs this, to really understand what they're committing to and what they're getting into financially. But was there any consideration given to when the onus is actually on the school? Because this seems like when decisions are made from the student, but what about in those cases where, okay, maybe it's not as common that the school just shuts their doors, but we know in higher ed, often it's, the class is canceled, they don't provide the class anymore. We saw some very unimpressive policies that were attempted when everything physically shut down for COVID. And so I'm just wondering, was there anything there where the onus is put on the actual institute to provide refunds and make right with the students?
So thank you very much, Vice Chair Miller, for the question. Through Madam Chair, through to Vice Chair Miller. Again, for the record, this is Venetia Considine. So the bill did start out with the language that was a little bit more consistent with students getting refunds. After extensive talks with the Commission on Post-Secondary Education, the current law would fulfill the original language that I wanted to add to this bill. So what I am doing is I'm consistently working with the Commission on Post-Secondary Education to see where we can make some areas stronger. What I have learned is that the regulations are pretty good in areas where a school closes down, or when a school does not resolve their complaints, if it goes up to the Commission on Post-Secondary Education, that they are very good at resolving those. What I have learned is that a lot of the schools that I've personally heard about, I don't want to call it any like makeup or hair schools or you know, sort of some of those either don't necessarily fall under the Commission for Post-Secondary Education, or they are schools that pop up and close down, and then pop up and close down. They change their name, they change their locations, and they're really right now in the Commission for Post-Secondary Education. They don't have an investigator or sanctionable ability to really go after those schools. So that's something that I want to work on with the Commission in the future to fix. I hope that sort of answers your question a little bit, but after learning about the Commission for Post-Secondary Education and the regulations and what they can do, I think one of the things that I want this bill to do with the complaint process and things being put on institutions' website is to get the fact that they exist out there more, so that students know that they are there, so that if there are any complaints, they are the entity that can ensure that the institution, holds up their ends of the agreement.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate I appreciate your response and attention to that. And again, I would think that if these schools were accepting FAFSA or any type of federal funding, that they definitely should be under those same expectations. Thank you, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Do we have any other questions from the committee? I see Assemblywoman Tolles has a question. Are there any others? Looking. Okay, Assemblywoman Tolles, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you. I appreciate the way you present bills, and thanks for going through point by point and giving your explanation of not only the bill, but the amendment. Just have a couple questions, and forgive me if I missed this in your explanation, but you mentioned in the amendment that shall not permit its personnel to engage in recruiting activities in settings where prospective students cannot reasonably be expected to make informed and considered enrollment decisions. And I just wondered if you could elaborate a little bit more on some examples of what might constitute not being able to be reasonably expected to make those decisions. And then I had one more question after that.
Thank you for the question to Assemblywoman Tolles through Madam Chair Bilbray Axelrod. This is Venetia Considine for the record. So this language was language that has been used across the country, although the language does actually have a laundry list of places, including homeless shelter, welfare offices, areas where perhaps people with low incomes or in situations where they cannot, in areas that are of high drug use, where they're not being able to make good decisions, that recruiters in some other states, I'm not saying that necessarily happens here, but some recruiters have approached people there and gotten them to sign agreements there. We did not want to include the laundry list because I think if we put a laundry list, then there would be some issues. I understand the reasoning why in some states that they will list, let's say, the welfare office. But on the other hand, that also means, well, what if the welfare office is in a Job Connect area where they're going to have like a school fair and these other schools want to come in, as well and potentially talk about, what that institution is offering. And we didn't want to get into too many conflicts on that. That's why I wanted to leave that very specific type language into the regulations, because we can craft that to fit Nevada as opposed to model language that's used across the country. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And I appreciate that. The minute we start enumerating long lists, then it leaves open the door for what if we missed something. And so I agree with that philosophy of keeping it more broad, and just as long as we are, because in some of those circumstances, we want to connect individuals with education opportunities that connect them with employment opportunities. And we're not in any way restricting that. We're just making sure that it's not under the auspice of perhaps taking advantage of those individuals without the proper counseling and guiding them through steps to get them educated and back on their feet. So my next question, so thank you for your explanation. And just my next question is that your third item under the additions and the amendment is that we include a mandated disclosure page on the website, and failure to have that disclosure page is a sanctionable offense. And if I've missed it, forgive me, but what are the sanctions we're proposing in this legislation?
Thank you for the question, Assemblywoman Tolles. Through Madam Chair to Assemblywoman, this is Venetia Considine for the record. Thank you for that question. That is something that I am still working with the Commission on fleshing out, because right now there are no sanctions, or at least none that I'm aware of. And in order to reward the good actors, but enforce the bad, enforce things against the bad actors, I believe we need to have some sanctions, because if it is a for-profit institution that is really not doing the education part, the only way to dissuade them is through a financial sanction. So I am still working with the Commission to work out how we do that and where those sanctions go. I do not believe they would be extensive sanctions. I believe that would be a 3-digit sanction.
Thank you.
Okay, so Chair Bilbray Axelrod had to go to another committee to present one of her own bills. So at this time, just want to check in and see if there are any additional questions. All right, seeing no additional questions at this time, why don't we open it up for anyone that would like to testify in support of AB 215? So broadcasting, AB 169, broadcasting, if we could open the lines. And again, we ask that you limit your testimony to as close as to 2 minutes as possible. So we'll give it a minute while people are calling in for support.
For those callers already on the line, to testify in support on AB 169, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Vice Chair, I already have one caller. Would you like me to queue them up?
Yes, please.
Caller with the last 3 digits of 747. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin.
Vice Chair and committee members, my name is Andrew Lee Pilbit. The last name, L-E-P-E-I-L-B-E-T. And I am the representative for combat wounded veterans with Purple Hearts in the state of Nevada, 70,000 disabled American veterans in the state of Nevada, and I am the current state chair for the United Veterans Legislative Council. We have two parts, and we are in support of this bill. First is for our active military and our National Guard. Their continuing education and programs that change is essential for their advancements in the military. And in order to get additional degrees and classes, it's essential that they continue this program and not lose part of their GI Bill and other veterans benefits. Secondly, our veterans that are now trying to get back into the working community, this is an aid to them when a program changes, and it helps them get up to speed or get themselves entered into the workforce well educated. So AB 169, we endorse the bill and support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For any callers who have just joined to testify in support on AB 169, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, at this time, there are no more callers in support on AB 169. The line is open and working, though.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Do we have any callers in opposition? Can we open that line?
Sure. To testify in opposition on AB 169, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, to testify in opposition on AB 169, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Vice Chair, at this time, the line is open and working, but there are no callers in opposition on AB 169.
Thank you. Do we have any callers? Can we open the line for anyone who'd like to testify in neutral?
For anyone who wishes to testify in neutral on AB 169, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller with the last 3 digits of 214, please press star 6 now to unmute. Caller with the last 3 digits of 214, please press star 6 to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. You will have 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name for the record, and you may begin.
For the record, my name is Kelly Wiest, Kellywuest. I am the administrator of the Commission on Post-Secondary Education. First, I would like to thank Assemblywoman Considine for taking the time to meet with myself and Chair Clark with the Commission concerning the language of the bill. Consumer protection for students is of the utmost importance to the Commission, and we appreciate the desire of legislators to increase student protections and clarify the law. Just to give you some background, currently the Commission on Post-Secondary Education licensed 149 institutions, both for-profit and nonprofit, and they offer programs from pre-licensing all the way up to college degrees at the doctoral level. The number of institutions right now include 25 colleges and universities, 23 pre-licensed programs, and 101 institutions at the non-college degree level. So 39 of our institutions are accredited, and they're accredited by 15 separate accrediting bodies. Each accrediting body has their own set of rules and regulations, and it brings an additional level of complexity to trying to regulate institutions. The private post-secondary institutions do help provide a diverse workforce and often fulfill the niche training areas that are not really covered by INCHE or expand qualified individuals in high demand areas like nursing. Last year alone, we did have over 29,000 students enter private post-secondary institutions as new students, and all were required to sign an enrollment agreement and to receive a catalog. The information provided to students prior to enrollment is intended to assist the students in making that informed decision about their educational choice. Clarifying the law and expanding those requirements can be beneficial to protect both the student and the institution. Concerning the changes, NRS 394-449, the conceptual amendment that clarifies substantially failing to furnish the required training will permit the institutions to meet the workforce needs and yet the accrediting body needs. Yes, ma'am.
That was 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Wrap it up.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
For anyone who's just joined, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. We are currently on testimony for neutral on AB 169. Vice Chair, at this time, the line is open and working. There are no more callers to testify in neutral on AB 169.
Thank you. With that, Assemblywoman Constantine, is there any final remarks you'd like to make?
Just want to thank the entire committee for allowing me to come here today and for listening to my bills, and I hope that you support them, and I'm here to answer any questions at any time. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 169. The next item on our agenda is public comment. So broadcasting, can you open up the lines for anyone interested in making public comment?
Of course, Vice Chair. To make public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Once again, to give public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Vice Chair, at this time, the line is open and working. However, there are no callers in the queue to give public comment.
Okay, we'll wait a few moments because we want to make sure people that do intend to call in have a little bit of time to call in. So let's just wait a few moments and see if anyone enters.
Of course, Vice Chair.
Does it appear anyone is logging in?
Vice Chair, at this time, we have no callers in the queue to give public comment.
Okay, thank you. Well, with that, I will close public comment and just again remind everyone that our next meeting will be Thursday the 18th at 1:30. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.